Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. I'm Caitlin Smith, your webinar host from Main Street ROI. We're very excited to be having another of our Master Your Marketing series where we bring together leaders in the digital marketing world to bring you great content focused on ways you can grow your business. This series is sponsored by all of our partners, SEMrush, SpyFu, Active Demand, WooRank, Optimizer, Lucky Orange, Likeable Local, and Hello Bar. For today's webinar, we're excited to welcome Olga Andrienko, Head of Global Marketing at SEMrush. The presentation should be about 30 minutes so that we can leave plenty of time at the end for a live Q&A session. Feel free to type any questions you have in the Q&A box along the way, and we'll get back to them at the end of the webinar. As always, today's webinar will be recorded, and we'll send out a replay video along with a PDF of the slides to everyone who has signed up. So if you get calls or are pulled away for work, don't worry, you're not going to miss a thing. With that, I'll turn the webinar over to Olga so she can get started.
Hi guys, great to be here. Is the sound all right?
Yes, I can hear you perfect.
Okay, cool. Okay, so today I'll be talking about optimizing for voice search and virtual assistants, and we conducted a study at SEMrush, and so mainly that would be takeaways from the study that we did. And then I'll just start with now. So we conducted a really exciting voice search study. I think that's the biggest one in the world so far. And we took 20,000 queries, 3 different devices, and also 8 ranking factors. So we tried to analyze what actually impacts whether Google takes the website as an answer or it ignores it. The inspiration comes from the this blog post and the study conducted by Brian Dean. So he took 1 device and 10,000 queries and then similar ranking factors, and then he tried to understand what was the reason Google were favoring some websites over the other, and then we took it a step forward and and expanded the number of devices, also checked the number of queries and expanded the number of ranking factors. So devices we took were 3 devices: Google Home Mini, and Android. And then if we look at the whole market for digital assistants now, then there are several ones. So main 4, and then all of them, they have their digital assistant, they have their operating system, and then they function absolutely differently. Why we chose 3? Because we thought that if Google has its algorithms behind all 3, then they should be similar, and there should be connection and logic between them. So when it comes to the list of ranking factors, we analyzed, well, really various ones. We took the position, we analyzed the position of the website on the search engine result page, the text length, readability, whether more backlinks they had, also whether they implemented schema, structured data. We analyzed speed. So we looked at technical factors, also the content itself, and also the position on the SERP that the website already had. And then obviously, well, of course, SERP features, whether any SERP features or SERP element were impacting the results. The methodology was really, really fun. So we had the device stationed next to the laptop. Laptop was asking the device a certain question, then the device was responding. The laptop recorded the answer, and then we then collected all of the answers, the links, or the identified where the content came from, and then mapped it with our data, and then understood where the understood the speed, the text length, the complexity, and all of those factors. How it looked in the real world, so that was a soundproof photo booth and device stationed next to the laptop. So that's exactly what I witnessed in our in our office in Prague. So over to key findings, and what we discovered is that 80% of all the results that Google devices read, well, to the user came from top 3, and then for Android that was less. And then if we look at the different devices, so for Google Home, 40% came from the from the top 1 result, and then majority still like in top 3. For Android phone, results that were taken from the top, well, for the first position was 34%, so a bit less. And still majority, well, top 3 takes the majority. What's really interesting is that 70% of all answers came from 2 SERP features. So that's featured snippets, and people also asked. So those 2 features really matter when it comes to voice search, and optimizing for those features will also get you the really high chance of appearing in answer for Google digital assistant. For Android, that was a bit less, so overall 60%, 40 and 20 for featured snippets, and people also ask respectively. And that's drilled down for 3 devices. As you can see, what really also was interesting, that Google Home and Google Home Mini had slightly different outcomes as well. And then for video carousel, that was really interesting. I'll show you one example that really well impressed me in terms of algorithm that Google has. So I'll just share the quick examples of how it looks like. So for the query, how many airports in the USA, then Google, that was the snippet the Google Assistant was reading, and then it was taken from the featured snippets, and then we mapped it with the desktop. And that was another query that shows, is it healthy to eat squash, and then how the Google Assistant took it from the people also ask. And that's the result that comes from video carousel, which I think is amazing, because if you see, and then Google takes it not from the beginning, but it takes it takes it from the certain place in a video, which means that they transcribe, well, they read the transcription, and then they pick the best spot from this clip. And I believe that there is a really well, a big opportunity here especially when it comes to Google Hub with the screen, and that would really come in handy for any website that optimizes for recipes, because that's where ladies would probably search for the recipe, and that's where Google will start reading from some specific point in the how-to video for the recipe. So this is, I would say, the future. So for now, this is the 3rd and least important feature that we've seen, but this is definitely going to expand in the future. And this is probably a complex slide, but so there were some queries that appeared in feature snip in Google Home and Google Home Mini, but were not featured in Android. And so there were a lot of differentiation between the digital assistant without the screen, and then without being able to show anything to the user, as opposed to the Android phone. So moving on to the discoveries, in terms of text length, we discovered that almost every text that Google was reading was about 42 words on average. There were deviations, but mostly that's 42 words that Google is reading out. And that's the example of the question having exactly 42 words. And then, well, the majority was from 40 to 42, and then later on I'll share how it correlates with what featured snippets have, and people also ask have. And text was in a complexity score, well, in a FlexSkin case score that was around 8, and then it translates in a regular language that that was the text that was understandable and readable for 15-year-olds, and then for Android the text complexity was a bit less, and then the amount of complex words was less. So if we compare all 3 devices, then you'll see that for difficult words, then Android has a lot less, and then the preferable language is simpler, which was also interesting. I have no idea why, but this just appears that when we listen, then Google chooses more complex than we read from the phone, for example. And almost half of all websites that Google chose to choose information from, they actually had the link, which Google mentioned, and Android has only 18% with the link. In terms of backlinks, I would not say that they really showed that they matter a lot, but we saw that backlink anchors and titles are slightly more present in the answers than non-answered, so we still would consider they matter, but this is not the strongest ranking factor for voice assistance for sure. And when it comes to technical SEO factors, then we see, so there are various types of schema. Like there's loads of structured data types, and we've seen that structured data so far doesn't really impact the voice search answers, and then majority of websites that Google chose as an answer, they didn't have any schema, so there was definitely no preference. And then if we compare no schema and answers and non-answers, that you see that basically then answers didn't have schema applied more times than non-answer. So that's not a ranking factor. So probably what Google will do, they are still investigating the space as well. So if they implement some schema type that is directly connected to search, then it would matter. But so far, any type doesn't really matter. And when we checked website security, what we've seen is that it doesn't really impact the results, but because everyone on the first page, they all are already on HTTPS. So if we would have looked at it like 3 years ago, then the results would have been different. But we're sure that right now Google just chooses the HTTPS because everyone that they're ranking on the top page, they're already secure, and then you see that top 10, like 90% in top 10 already is on HTTPS, which means that Google just by default takes that. And out of all factors that we've analyzed, apart from the position and the search features, speed seems to be one of the most important factors that we've identified. And Google chooses websites that load faster, and this sometimes is 15 times faster. So just to give you an idea about time to interactive and time to first byte, for non-answers and answers, you see the difference. It's always, for all of the devices, the loading time for answers is faster. And then if I give you a bit of an idea how it could differ on average. So for the query for Google Home Mini, where does a bird live? Speed of answer in milliseconds is 15 times faster. And that's just for all of the devices and across all 20,000 queries. So there's one takeaway that you get. Then it's probably that there's no such thing as faster and fast enough, then you should do it. Well, you should make your website load as fast as possible, because this is really now impacting the search results, not only on mobile but also for voice search assistants. So when it comes to summary of the ranking factors that we covered, so it's definitely well, ranking on top really matters, and top three, well, ranking in top three already, well, makes your chance of ranking for voice search assistant much higher. Then also featured snippets on people also ask are two features that provide 70% of voice answers, and so ranking, and so this is something that's super important. Backlinks are not important as much. We've seen some impact, but it's relatively insignificant. Word count, 42 words, from 40 to 42 words, approximately, for all of the answers that Google gives. And then your content should be easy to read, meaning that, well, try to optimize and use 15-year-old, well, language that would be understandable for 15-year-old. Maybe go a bit with, well, complex words should be also taken into account, that there's, well, for Android, for example, that was less number of complex words, so try to balance it out with mobile search and then voice search assistants. Definitely, well, if your website is not secure, then it's something that you should definitely look at. And then most important factor, apart from the SERP position, would be page speed. And then what didn't have any impact, it was Schema and other SERP features. We haven't found any correlation in voice search and in other SERP features. And then we conducted, when I first was presenting in May, we conducted a quick Twitter survey asking our global audience whether they were even using voice search. And then a lot of, well, 40% answered never. I would say that now it's even changing, maybe to 35%, but still it's a big number that are not using that. And then rarely, sometimes there are 8% that do using that daily. And also you remember that using digital assistant and using voice search and digital assistant, that's two different things, because you can, well, a lot of people have Alexa when they say, well, that they command Alexa switch on the lights or put on some music. So that's not voice search. Voice search is asking the device questions and then they giving you answers in a way that you would search for information. So the statistics that I really believe in, and then this comes from global audience, meaning different languages. There are some Polish people saying that the voice recognition is really bad. So if you're if you're in US, then definitely voice search % adoption is higher. And then globally it will be higher once Google really masters other languages and recognition. So voice search will never replace mobile search. What Google does is then it ensures that it gives different means to search for different people. So this is just another way of helping various audiences that would prefer searching with voice than with on the mobile and desktop devices. The statistics that I really believe is that every 5th search on mobile devices is done with voice. So roughly 20%. This looks already really trustworthy, and then I'm sure that it's going to be higher with time. And I do understand, so, well, 20% is enough for you to pay some attention, but 20% of all searches is also not enough to really focus on voice search as the primary SEO well, so what you need to look at now on how to incorporate optimizing for voice search with everything that you do already. I mentioned a lot about featured snippets, and people also ask. And this is, I think, where you would have an absolute win-win, where you dominate the SERPs on desktop and mobile, and then also are on voice search devices as well. So when it comes to two of those SERP features, what matters? Like we have a couple of more studies to help you with that. When we analyzed featured snippets, then we identified the questions that featured snippets have mostly. And then 89 of questions are framed in paragraphs. So there are 3 types of featured snippets. That would be paragraphs, that would be tables, and that would be lists. And then when it comes to informational queries that are mainly actually used for voice search, then it would be paragraphs. And there's a cheat sheet about all the 3 types of featured snippets, and also the images height and width that you could use. And then you see the magic number 44. So the average text length of the voice answer was 42, and then it's approximately the same a number of words that Google shows in the featured snippets. So I'm not saying that probably you should, all your paragraphs should be 42 or 44 words, but if you make a FAQ page and answer the questions that, for the questions that you're likely to rank, probably there should be some specific paragraph that you'd likely to optimize, and that paragraph maybe test it out and then use the 40 to 44 words for it. And we also analyzed people also ask, and that's the more recent study. So out of 1 million queries analyzed, we discovered that 43% of all search engine result pages already had this box of people also ask that is located usually below the featured snippet. And we analyzed desktop and mobile. So what we've seen, and actually this is a really optimistic information. So I try to explain it the best way. So what we've seen is that 80% of links that we found and people also ask do not rank anywhere in top 100 for the primary query. So that means that, but they do rank in featured snippets for other queries. So what we see in people also ask is the related questions and then related answers that Google uses in some other SERPs, but they're not necessarily present for the primary query. That means that almost all of the websites suddenly have a chance for really bigger exposure on the SERPs that you don't really even cared about. So really think about the semantic connections for your core keywords and core topics with other topics, and then there are tools also that would uncover the people also ask queries. There are 2 tools that I would recommend definitely, and that would be Answer the Public. Is a great tool and it's free, and then it's just you type in one topic, it gives you different subtopics and then the wider number of questions, and that's basically the only thing that you get. That's the tool that we I would say Answer the Public on steroids, where we actually also have the this mind map with subtopics, but we also outlined all of the questions that people ask regarding this topic, and we filtered by search volume, and then we give you basically a lot of search data with it and semantically related searches to ensure that you actually understand what SERPs to look at too. That is that is a brief summary of the report. I think we can open the questions now, and then meanwhile I answer the questions. I also will highlight more findings maybe and that we highlight in the research too.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for all of that information. It looks like we've got one question here to start. For local search, does voice SERP use the snack pack of 3 results that are part of Google Maps?
We haven't found any connection of local pack to the results. So well, only the features that mattered were only featured snippets, and people also ask, and then, as you said, in some really small percentage, the video carousel. There was no connection to video well, there's no connection to local pack, but I do understand that probably the queries that you're thinking is that what's the best place to eat, and then what's the supermarket nearby. Then for these queries, I do understand that there might be really strong connection. So if we took 20,000 queries and then there were random queries that were informational, they were well intentional, and also on a decision point as well. We excluded the branded keywords, but other than that, everything was super random. So within those 20,000 random ones, we haven't found connection. But what I've asked my data team to expand the study to is to understand those really location-based queries. And that's why we will be moving forward, because I do understand if we take really location specific, and that would be New York, if we analyze it, then I believe the local pack will have a lot of impact.
Okay, awesome. So hopefully that was Chuck that sent that over. Yep, he said thank you. And that is the only question that we have at this point. Does anybody else have any questions at all? We can give it a second. Oh, Chuck's got another one that he's typing.
What I can say meanwhile is that there are a lot of, like, what the most popular question that I get is whether there is an opportunity to monetize the fact of being chosen by Google as an answer. For that, I honestly, well, there's no way to monetize it now. I think that is a bit discouraging for a lot of marketers, and that's why we're cautious on spending time on something that will not bring us any results, like that we might measure in revenue. But what I would say is Google is testing it out and then releasing more and more in this space, and voice search space is growing its own. What I would think is that, well, I definitely would want my website to be a trusted source that Google chooses over my competitor. So that is where you cement your position early in the day. And also what's important is, well, to know is that probably Google now uses only organic, but you never know what opportunities Google will give to the to advertisers. Maybe that would be a day sponsored by some company, and then the result you would be able to impact actually, and to bid on certain questions to be the primary source as well. So I think now it's just a necessity to really focus on it somehow, incorporate, well, optimize for the speed which you need anyways, and then also make sure that you optimize for featured snippets when people also ask which you need anyways, and also understand where, well, the Google is going with this, and then maybe educate your maybe paid team on the opportunities further when they come along.
Okay. Awesome. Chuck did have another question. And then we do have a few more now. He asked if you were, I think you mentioned that you were just looking into Google for now. In addition to Google, he wanted to know if you were going to look into Siri and Amazon voice search as well.
Yeah, we did that. So far, it's not really exciting. There's nothing I could show you, unfortunately. So I asked my data team to just really refrain all of the queries. So we're taking those, I think, with informational queries, Siri and the new Apple device. new Apple device was really not good. So they are not geared towards voice search. So this is completely out. So Alexa was good, and then Siri was okay. But if we think of well, Siri, it's only on the phone. On the phone, it works. With the Apple digital assistant, it doesn't. And then so what was different is the amount of words. So Google gives 42, and then Siri and Alexa were around 14 and 18 respectively. So you can also already see that, well, Google's vision is to give information and then be, well, just to help you so much that you don't have to search at all. But Alexa and Siri, they are really optimized, even created to help you with commands, but not the search.
Okay. Jack asked, he said, many successful politicians talk to the public on a 5th grade level. Would you recommend setting up on less than the 15-year-old language?
I think so. That's what just we analyze what works already for the websites that are chosen as answers. So that's the level of language Google chooses, and then Google machines choose. I think that it should be balanced out. So, but I would not really go for the simple language, because that's what Google obviously doesn't really favor. Yeah, I would still think, well, if that's what we've shown you is the best practices for websites that already made it. So 15-year-old is what works, and then maybe you should lower it down, but I would say I would still recommend that you don't go to the 5-year-old.
Okay. Then another question, how much do you foresee adding text to speech to existing high traffic content will add value in 2020?
Text to, okay. Okay, so the just when you talk, and then it's just the device puts that as a text, right? Is that what?
Yeah, I think that's what she's saying. Yep.
Okay. I think this is, well, I always am in for playing with different mediums. So definitely, if you're using that and then the voice recognition is fine, then definitely use it. And even, well, having video and audio and text, and now I think as repurposing your content is also great. So definitely use this feature, and also make sure that you tackle different audiences, well, with different channels. Some really, well, podcasts are now really on the rise. So maybe it should be the other way around, when you record your voice and then transcribe it and still put it to text. So I think that's an amazing feature, and it will be definitely used more.
Okay, awesome. Dan asked, if you were to sum it up, what are the key areas to focus SEO on to optimize for voice search with local intent, like looking for a dentist?
Okay, I would say, well, I have no data, well, to prove it, but yeah, well, local pack is likely to impact the local results, but there you would need Schema. So that's where we really, it was just, we hoped for this answer. It was really obvious that then local pack would impact the local search. But I think our database of queries was so broad and without really local intent, so we cannot have any proof now. But I still think that a local pack would still matter for the local results.
Okay. How do you think voice search will affect paid results over organic?
So far, Google hasn't announced anything, but what I've seen through the years, for example, I remember this really great thing that Google used to have is the author picture. Well, you uploaded your picture in Google Plus, then you could connect that to the article that you wrote, and if it ranked, then you also your photo showed in Google search results, and that obviously stole a lot of CTR from ads. And that what resulted in is that Google removing that in order for the ads to get the proper clicks. And I think what Google always tries to do, they tries to balance out the useful information that they show as organic, and also try to push their advertisers also for the ads that would look kind of organic. So I think, well, I mean, maybe in voice search it will come to that when they first of all try everything organic in order for people to really trust it and adopt it and then use it more, and then they will be cautiously adding advertising options. But I don't think that will happen very soon. They're still early in the day, but I would imagine having maybe really sponsored videos where Google announced, okay, well, for your query, then the sponsor of your answer is this, and then they read out whatever the advertiser wanted them to read.
Okay. Let's see here. Do you think B2B industries could benefit from voice search?
Yeah, absolutely. I think voice is universal. So it's just the queries are different, but also the content of the website is different. And yes, now I think a lot of devices are at home, but we already have a lot of small devices in the office too, and I think the adoption is a bit different, and then the time of the day of the using of the devices also will be different, but the adoption is across B2B and B2C industries.
Okay. James asked, how is visual search growing versus audio search?
I would say, well, we haven't. I work for a data company, so if I don't have the data, I don't really. I'm cautious to answer the question. So I haven't seen the data about the really grow. I haven't. There's a lot of obviously, well, video that is growing, and then people, well, searching with YouTube, also YouTube helping, well, and being incorporated in Google search, that is growing. I don't have the numbers, but I believe that YouTube SEO might be even, well, it will bring you less exposure because people are not likely to really convert from YouTube as much as they convert from Google. So voice search in this sense is probably you grasp the wider audience, but with YouTube SEO and then ranking your videos both on YouTube and Google, which is an added benefit of YouTube SEO, then I would say that you would at least get some money now, while with voice search you will not measure it in revenue-wise. So there's a wider audience and just bringing value, or, well, YouTube SEO where you would be able to measure clicks. So that's they're both growing and in different ways, and then the monetization, or, well, just the outcome is completely different.
Okay. Thank you. And Thomas said, for 2020, what trends do you see for local, regional, nationwide, and international SEO? How much time do you recommend to spend on voice search versus organic and Google search?
All right. So in terms of, I actually don't really, so when I'm asked about trends, I just, I think that there's just really a push for even more features. That's what I would do. Definitely for example, with medical update, that happened few years ago, and then was, well, rolling out also last year. What I've seen is that even the websites in health that had great content and were super helpful and were ranking for high search volume queries. When it came to the latest updates, then they needed some schema work and then structured to optimize the technical part to order to regain their rankings. So I think technically your website should be absolutely healthy. It should be fast, and then Google would need to be able to crawl your website, and then if that's local, then it's a local pack. For nationwide, I think what Google said is that 15% of queries that they see daily have never been done before. So 15% of what they are even working with themselves, there is unknowns. With that, I think I would still recommend optimizing for long tail keywords, because those are the ones that emerge and then Google even doesn't expect them. So I would not say it as a trend, but I would definitely say, recommend it as a path to expand the organic presence with really long tail keywords and getting more clicks for them, rather than optimizing for really high search volume and then being on page 50. So that is, I think, what my tip would be. That's not necessarily a trend, but that's something to get. And then also with people also ask, dominating the SERP now, well, I showed 43%, and that's US. And then in Australia, that's over 70%, I believe, for all of the results out of the 1,400 that we analyzed. So the SERP features that provide the best value in terms of information, they dominate now. So yeah, those are the main trends. And there was another question about how much time. I would not recommend optimizing specifically for voice search, but I would recommend optimizing for top of the SERPs, and then for featured snippets, some people also ask, and then optimizing the website performance, meaning speed. So those are the things that should be incorporated in your regular SEO, and then it would help the voice search too.
Okay, awesome, thank you. One more question we've got so far. How do you think e-commerce will shape with voice search?
E-commerce will benefit from the ads. So e-commerce pages don't really show up for example, for informational queries, because they don't have that much content on their pages. But when it comes to ads, then e-commerce takes most of the market. So I think that those websites, the same with AMP. AMP was for organic, and then suddenly e-commerce could adopt it. So I think as with many features before, then e-commerce comes into play where they really understand the revenue model and then monetization of any feature.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Well, that looks like it wraps up all of the questions. If anybody thinks of any others, you can always shoot them to us at support@mainstreetroi.com, and then we can get in touch with Olga to get them answered. And to close things out here, I just want to thank everyone for joining today's webinar. Thank you so much, Olga, for all of this information. As a reminder, we will be sending out the replay video and PDF of the slides, so look out for that in the next day or so. And we hope to see you next month for our next Master Your Marketing presentation. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Olga.
Okay, thank you.